Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tech Podcast series where we explore the intersection of technology industries that shape our world. I'm thrilled to have Vicky with us today, the visionary behind the Agrizy and India's fastest growing B2B platform in agri processing industry. He'll be sharing insights on how tech is revolutionizing fruit processing and so. To kick off the things, could you please introduce yourself and share the inspiration behind Agrizy and how you came up with this transformative idea?
So very brief background about myself. So I've done my post graduation from IIM Indore. Post that worked with in consulting for almost a year. I realized that I was not able to see the impact of my day-to-day work, and that's why I thought of joining an early stage startup. Came across Blackbuck, which is one of the largest logistics startup, a unicorn now. So I spent almost 5.5 6 years before starting Agrizy, right? Also to give you a brief background about what Agrizy is. So it's as Lakshit you mentioned, it's the largest one of the largest food processing egg tech in the country, right? And we are trying to actually solve for problems, or we're trying to actually connect the underutilized capacities of MSME food processors with the requirements of custom processed buyers for custom processed food products, right? So this is what we are trying to solve for. So on one hand, suppliers are MSME agri food processors, and the other hand, we have buyers who are typically large brands, large retail chains who need processed products, and we're trying to solve for that specific supply chain issue.
So it's always intriguing to hear about all the spark that ignites the innovation. Can you elaborate on the specific moment or maybe an experience that led to you to conceive the idea of Agrizy and its potential to revolutionizing agri processing? And just a follow-up question maybe would be, does the experience from Blackbuck helped you in entire this journey?
So yeah, I think before even Blackbuck, it's actually both Saket and I. We come from this food processing background. Different commodities, different geographies. So we had seen the food processing firsthand. And we realized that the irrespective of geographies, irrespective of product types, the problem statements of food processors, the MSME food processors, are more or less the same, right? And that's why. Uh, both Saket and I, we were working at Blackbuck. We met there, and we realized that this is something that we want to build together, right? Uh, the other thing which helped us, finalize the specific idea and the specific business model around it was also that we had seen the supply chain issues of these, uh, MSME processors and large brands and large buyers firsthand, because we were trying to solve some of these problems during our Blackbuck stint, right? So yeah, I think it's a combination of both. One is our own agri-food processing background, I would say family background. The other is, build. I would say, first-hand experience of building very large-scale B2B startups, right? And Blackbuck in specific, because we were trying to solve for the supply chain issues of some of these MSME processors and large buyers ourselves, right? So yeah.
So if you have to explain or maybe if you have to derive the Agrizy in one line layman terms, how you will define it?
Sure. So, Agrizy is a B2B platform which is revolutionizing the food processing industry, right? So that's
Yes.
how I will call it out. And when I say revolutionize, I mean, just to add some disclaimers. Basically, what we're trying to do is actually organize, digitize, and simplify the entire supply chain, right? Now, the thing is that this industry has been known to be one of the most unorganized. I mean, tech is the last for tech, this would be one of the last frontier to win against, because it has been completely unorganized, pretty much high touch industry, and that's why a lot of offline ways of working, right? So yeah, so that's what we're
So
trying to
as you
do.
have mentioned about the tech now navigating these fragmentation, I would like to know the agri processing supply chain has often been fragmented and complex as you have mentioned. Could you delve into the how Agrizy utilizes tech to bridge all these gaps and connect maybe the suppliers and the unit processors?
So I think before we get into how Agrizy is trying to solve for this problem, I think just to underline how the entire supply chain works, and I'll give one example so that for the the audience, it becomes very clear that what exactly is food processing, right? So let's say in case of wheat, right? So wheat from farmers through multiple intermediaries, wheat reaches what is called as a flour miller or a primary processor, right? So flour miller is actually converting wheat into different varieties of flours, atta, maida, suji, and all of them, right?
Exactly.
Now, the thing is that this supply chain, there are so many intermediaries. From farmer, there are after farmer there would be village level aggregators, and then there will be taluka or district level traders, which are also called as artiyas. From then there would be some brokers or commission agent involved, right? And then the product is actually reaching the end customer, which is a primary processor who is actually converting wheat into different kind of flours. Now, the other chain is this flour can also various kind of flours can be used for more value added products like biscuits, confectionaries, and other other value added products. So there is it's a huge cycle that we're talking about, right? And there are so many intermediaries between the buyer and suppliers that even if you just organize and digitize the supply chain, you are actually adding a lot of value for the actual buyers and suppliers in the supply chain, right?
Okay.
So, so
Nice.
typically, the very first thing that we are trying to solve using technology is actually just organize and digitize. Bring everything online. Once that happens, there are a lot many touch points in the supply chain, and once you organize and digitize, right? Like some of the things which we call that were very hygiene for us. Let's say if I have ordered something on Amazon, I can see where exactly the goods are, right? There is a tracking for the order available with us, which specific warehouse, which specific distribution center the product is, right? Now, some of these things might be hygiene for us because the tech has revolutionized at least the B2C part of it, and we have seen this, we've been part of that. But what happens is that on the agri side, on the processing entire supply chain, some of these products, like tracking of the truck, right? If a buyer is ordered for a specific a one full truckload of wheat, for example, right? Now we are actually showing him where the truck is. Now, it might sound like hygiene, but for a lot of, for the stakeholders we work with, this is the first time they have looked at some of these things, right? So we have actually the first thing that we have done in the entire the supply chain is actually uh, the entire automation of discovery and fulfillment, right? So
Okay.
if
Nice.
there is a buyer, he wants a specific product, he can just order for it, and we will show him multiple suppliers, we'll try to connect, and we'll tell him what is the exact landing cost for that buyer, right? Suppliers are spread across the country, buyers are spread across the country, right? Which is the best supplier to work with, considering this supply chain issues, right? So we have actually added a pricing engine which optimizes the landing cost for the buyer. So if a buyer is sitting in Delhi, we can tell him exactly which location we should procure wheat from, so that the landing cost is optimized.
That's nice. Yeah, that's particular. You have segmented and segregated the process very, very perfectly. And now, from a user centric approach, maybe you have answered this question in your the former answer, maybe. But still, I would like to say if there is any missing point, like the success seems rooted in addressing real challenges. How do you ensure that maybe the tech you are integrating aligns with the needs and the preferences of agri suppliers and the processing units, if anything is left in between?
So I think the most important thing is that like the team that we have, all the founding team members, they had first-hand experience of agri and food processing, right? So that
Right.
the initial set of products or the applications or interfaces that we came up with, they were actually solving for some of the other problems of these buyers and suppliers on the platform, right? And now I think like after we have built an initial set of all these I would say interfaces or applications for the buyers and suppliers, now I think we are going deeper into that. I would say the hygiene has been set, we've been able to onboard all the buyers and suppliers on the platform, they're using our systems really well, right? And some of these things, they're seeing this for the first time, as I mentioned earlier, right? Now, what happens for every new feature, every new product, we are sitting with our buyers and suppliers, right? Just trying to understand what exactly the problems are. I think one of the most important thing here is, which is ingrained in all of us, which is very like trying to solve for major problems that that the buyers and suppliers are facing. Trying to find a path with least resistance. If I come up with some product which I know I can bring it to them after a quarter or 2 quarters, but if I bring it to them today, they might not use it, and that's why I don't want to build it. So it's a gradual shift, a gradual addition of new features, first prioritizing what is most important for them today, right? So that's how
Yes.
the product roadmap, the tech roadmap has been built. And as I mentioned, we are sitting with these guys day in day out to understand what exactly their problems are, and then trying to solve for them one by one.
That's a great model you are following. Maybe that's a great waterfall or the agile model that you are following. That's really signifies the best team you are having and the great connectivity in between. Now, you aim to connect agri suppliers and processing units globally, right? What strategies do you employ to overcome all the maybe the potential barriers, like say, if we talk about the language, currency, and maybe the regulatory differences?
So I think the way it works is, the very basic set of things that we've done is, uh, all our apps are available in 5 different languages, right? People in North can speak Hindi. Of course, English is by default available, right? So apart from that, we have also built our apps in 3 other languages as well. So people who want to interact with us through our systems, they can do it, right? From in the language that they are more comfortable with, right? I think apart from that, what is also important is that, for every I would say transaction, we have built some workflows. So let's say for a specific kind of order, let's say we are doing shipment from here to Europe, so we know what are the additional documents that have to be incorporated, and we have added those in the entire workflow, so that the suppliers and buyers can add those documents by themselves, like without our intervention. Of course, the first few transactions are assisted ones, where we are helping them how to utilize the apps to the best of their of their comfort. But yeah, I mean, over the time, we believe in transitioning this completely to autopilot, and that's how we've been doing.
So now I would just like you to maybe enabling the collaboration. So when we talk about multiple tech driven innovation, the agri processing industry is rapidly evolving. And what are the some innovative technologies or trends that you guys are currently leveraging or maybe exploring to stay ahead of the curve, and watching experimenting with all these latest new tech trends, like maybe AI, sometimes people call it blockchain or so, maybe for unique transaction, for token or tokenless maybe. So is there anything that is going inside? I would like to know what are the startups.
So I think, like, if I mean, some of these technologies, as you mentioned, is what we are trying to leverage on. There are different use cases for each and every technology that we are trying to use. But I think what is also important is, as I mentioned, some of these buyers and suppliers are not using technology at all, right? So
Right. Yeah.
the help can be with very simple automation of things. Automation of the manual processing that these buyers and sellers were doing, right? So it starts with that. Adding on to that, as I mentioned, the entire discovery and automation, discovery and fulfillment automation has been done on our app, right? So that is the next stage that we came up with. For this,
That's amazing.
yeah, for this discovery automation, right? When I say that, I think I earlier mentioned that we're trying to do an AI ML driven algorithm to determine what is the best supplier to work with. And there are so many variables, right? So let's say there is a supplier, for a specific location of buyer, which exact supplier we should work with. The suppliers are spread across the country, logistics costs are varying between them. We also know that if this supplier has already worked with this buyer earlier, the chances of quality approval, quality of the material getting approved are much higher, right? Now this specific supplier, how has he delivered the goods in the past, what is their rating? So the matchmaking between buyer and supplier, right? There are so many variables, and which we if we utilize it well, the possibility of buyer and supplier actually doing transaction after the discovery increases significantly. So that's where, the parameters that we are capturing on a day-to-day basis, we help them utilize that to get to the best supplier possible. I think the other important thing that we are also trying to utilize here is that, we're doing some experiments on fintech piece, right? So where uh, so the entire agri and allied industry actually comes under priority sector lending norms, which are set by RBI, and these and actually the banks are not able to disburse as much amount as they want to. I mean, there is no data source, right? And that's where we come in. The entire data source that we are building actually utilizes and can be utilized by the banks to do the disbursement, to do the underwriting of the buyers and suppliers on the platform, right? So that's where, so we have come up with a scoring model with every buyer and supplier we work with. We are assigning some scores to them, and which are using thousands of parameters. And every time there is a new transaction and there is a new payment flowing on the platform, these scores are getting updated, right? So
Okay.
this is like managing so many data points at once and actually utilizing that to come up with a final score for buyer and supplier, which banks and NBFCs can use to do the underwriting better, right? The way we
Yes.
have our CIBIL score, we would want our Agrizy score to be used by banks and NBFCs. So that's what we are trying to build as well.
That's a very fine parameter, I would say, you guys have built, and kudos to your work. Now, I would definitely try to touch upon the accessibility part, because in the in this all the logistic industry, it's the most important, right? When you are talking about the inclusive access, I would say. So connectivity can be very challenging in certain regions, right? How does you ensure that it's technology that's accessible and beneficial to all, regardless of the geographical limitations? Maybe though you have already answered that ML and AI or algorithm that you have mentioned about the we will get the nearest, or maybe the nearest stakeholder. But still, I would like to explore, is there any point you want to make here?
Sure. So I think the matchmaking which I mentioned earlier with buyer and supplier, there are multiple parameters as I mentioned. The idea would be, uh, you know, uh, the entire matchmaking algorithms have to be neutral, right? They have to basically come up with the matchmaking which is like most I would say suitable for both buyer suppliers, and also we also making some money out of it, right, from that transaction. Now the
Right.
point here is that this algorithms, they are defined in such a way that they are not doing any bias with respect to, let's say, a supplier from a metro city versus from a village, right? Or any of the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, right? The idea is that irrespective of the location, irrespective of the language, right? Irrespective of the size of the supplier and buyer, we would want to come up with, we are trying to build this matchmaking algorithms which are utilizing all the parameters and coming up with the best matchmaking.
So insights and analytics can be really a great factor for any organizations. And when we talk about data-driven insights can be transformative. Could you discuss how Agrizy's employs data analytics to provide actionable insights for the agri suppliers and the processing units?
Okay, so I think some of the things which, again, as I was saying, I mean, some of the things might sound like hygiene, but okay. So just to give you some examples, let's say there is a processor who has procured, let's say corn today, right? Threshed maize today, right? Now he's trying to procure today, and he wants to understand, and some these people don't use any technology. I mean, they just use one of the accounting software for the year end to just say, how much business they have done.
File the ITR and that's it. Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. So for them, if I look at it, I'm telling him today, okay, you are procuring maize threshed corn today at, let's say, 2,400 rupees per quintal, right? I am also giving him business intelligence tools, like same day last year, what price did you procure? Now, some of these things, as I mentioned, I mean, might sound hygiene, but for people who don't use it, right, this is like a wow, right? So
Right,
same day
exactly.
last month, or yesterday, or last month's average procurement price for me. All of those have been, I mean, automated using some of the data that they only have given, or they only have available in their accounting software. Just putting some plugins onto it and helping them with the best possible decision making. Right?
That's a
So,
very nice, yeah.
some of the other use cases are also, let's say I'm putting in 100 tons of wheat today in the processing plant for the next 1 week, right? What is the output of this in terms of flour, different kind of flours? Now,
Hmm.
let's say that determines the processing efficiency. So let's say if I'm putting in 100 tons of this, if I'm getting 70 ton or 72 ton of output of different kind of flours. And now if that is the correct case, how is my processing efficiency as compared to other processors in the same geography, right?
Right.
So is my processing good enough? Like, am I doing it right? And
Right.
these people don't have any idea otherwise. So you utilizing their own data to help them and build better business intelligence tools, and they can access all of that on our app today. So
It's a
these are
very
some of
nice
the.
reverse engineering that you guys have done. I must say this, and maybe that's the couple of sets of algorithms. Maybe the first one that you have mentioned about the same time seed, same day, a month, a year back, but the metrics was there. So that's very nice and curated because people don't want to, they have their data, they have everything accessible with them, but they don't want to outsmart or spend their much time upon it. Now maybe as sustainability becomes a focal point everywhere now, every industry, every tech industry is looking for from a perspective of a carbon footprint. And so how does Agrizy leverages maybe the tech to support sustainable practices or maybe reduce some kind of maybe environmental footprint within the agri processing industry?
So I think typically, if we look at this specific chain, what we are trying to do actually is, overall, all these processors, and specifically the MSME processors, they are at gross underutilization of their installed capacities, right? So they would be at 50, 60, 70% of capacity utilization. At the same time, we would have seen, multiple instances where the fruits and vegetables are, just thrown away on roads because the farmers are not able to get the specific price that they would want otherwise, right? So
Exactly.
in this case, is what we are doing is, we are, I mean, one of the major category that we work in is the processing of fruits and vegetables, where we increase the shelf life of these products. Processing can be of any type. It results in increasing the shelf life. Now what we are actually doing is that connecting these multiple farmers, where the goods are getting wasted, the fruits and vegetables, the fresh category is getting wasted. We connect them to the processor, we process as much. Now the problem with these processors is that even if they process, let's say, 30-40% more or utilize their entire capacity, they don't have buyers to sell these products to, right? So that's where we come in. We are connecting these MSME processors with the buyers of processed foods across the globe, right? We do shipments to multiple countries, even to European countries as well, right? So the idea is that we are building demand for these MSME processors. If we build demand for them, and we also make them compliant to the requirements of some of the large buyers in terms of quality, in terms of processes, in terms of entire processing efficiency. When we do all of that, they will process more. When they process more, the wastage of farmers, the process, the entire wastage that we see on fresh fruits and vegetables, that reduces. I mean, so we are doing all of that to ensure that we're actually trying to solve for the entire supply chain, right? And it also starts with finding demand in international as well as domestic markets.
Exactly. So maybe that's very nice process that you have exactly built. Now talking about the maybe the future vision to wrap up. You quickly share some vision for the future that you are looking at for for agri processing, and how technology maybe will continue to play a crucial role, maybe in terms of that vision that you have in your mind.
So I think we are very clear about the opportunity that is there in the country in terms of processing of agri and food products. We are either the largest producer of any of the agri commodities. If you look at it, we are either the largest producer or in the top five list of the producers, right? So now the idea is that, how do we process more, and how do we find more buyers for them in domestic and international markets. So essentially we are trying to transform India into a global food processing hub, right? And we want to play our role in that, right? Even all the, if you look at Ministry of Food Processing Industry, or some of the other export oriented organizations like APEDA and all, everyone wants to increase the processing of the products as well as the exports of these products, right?
Exactly.
so,
Right.
so everyone is aligned to that. We are also aligned in that. We are playing our bit, right? So we want to transform India into global food processing hub, and we want to be the largest processor in that specific field, I would say.
Yeah, and definitely no doubt about it. When when as you have already sorted out the major part, that is the supply chain of all this industry, which is totally messed up right now. You are just trying to solve that issue from the ground level, ground zero level, and you're looking upon it from a 30,000 feet. That looks very nice. Your reverse engineering that you have done in every part, every engineering sector, that's very nice. And really nice to hear from you about all these insights about the agriculture and the agri-tech industry and the food processing industry. And maybe we can look forward to explore more about this. Any closing remarks to you would you would want to share with our audience? Please go ahead.
No, I think like yeah, we've discussed in detail. Yeah, I mean, as I said, uh, we're very passionate about this space, right? And we also see that there is an immense opportunity that is available today in front of us. But just want to keep doing and keep executing it right, and in the
Maybe
right
for
direction.
a buyer who is listening to this podcast, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So if they have, helped us so far, they have believed in us in the initial days. I am, grateful to them, and we would ask them to continue doing, continue believing in us. We're very sure that what we are building is in the best interest of our suppliers, could be farmers, MSME processors, or even the large buyers as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, Vicky. Thank you for the podcast and for joining us for this podcast. It was really nice. It was really my pleasure to host you for this podcast.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks a lot for for your time and for inviting me. It was great interacting with you.
Likewise, thank you.